in bondage to death was not as it ought to be.
Right.
We were as we ought to be as humans, but we were not in a state that was as that ought to be.
Ah.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Right? We connect our identity in there. Our identity as human beings was always as it ought to be. What we believed about it was not.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
Now, the state we were in, that was a state of death, was not as it ought to be. Which is what righteousness means, a state of one who is as it ought to be. The state of one. It doesn't say the identity of one.
Right.
The state of one.
Yeah.
Right?
That's important.
We've confused identity of people with the state.
Right.
And by doing that, we've created a whole lot of us and them. And it's not the burden isn't on us to get people saved, but I guarantee you go tell people they're not the children of God, that they're rejected of God, forsaken of God, but if they believe, then they'll be. That's not a very good evangelistic message. But if you come and tell a person, listen, man, God has come and called you his own.
Yes.
He's come and claimed you as his child. And he's come and said he doesn't want you to die, that he wants to preserve your life in him as a free gift. Now that sounds a whole lot different than, well, you didn't really come from God. You're not God's. You're not his children. But if you do this, then you can become. Then it kind of gives off, well, if he don't want me, I don't want him.
Right, exactly. Well, it goes to the opening statement of the message, that God wants to be with us.
Yeah.
He wants to be with us. And that just runs contrary to so many people's teaching, that God wants to be with us. But it's and we talked about it, I looked it up. We talked about thinking of God as being tangible, and the carnal view of things is that God would be intangible. His presence would be an intangible presence. But the spiritual view, or God's view, is that his presence is indeed tangible. So I looked up the word tangible, and it's really good. It's perceptible by touch, capable of being perceived, palpable, substantially real. Real, not imaginary, or real, or actual. So when you start to think of that in terms of carnal and spiritual, if it's an intangible, then that means that it's unable to be touched. It's not definite or clear, vague, difficult to understand. We've made God that. All of those things, right? We've made him vague. We've made him difficult to understand, unclear. All of those things, that's the carnal view that's done that, has made him intangible. God's view is that he's tangible and he wants to be with us. And that to me just blows me away. Just blows me away.
You can't really rest in a guy if you don't know. It's the most shocking thing to me. I was just watching a message. I won't say who it was, but I was just watching a message the other day because somebody sent it to me and asked me what I thought about it. And the guy's whole message was about that it's bad to have certainty when it comes to God.
Wow.
The guy's whole message was about...
Really?
Oh yeah. The whole message was about you limit the possibilities by having certainty about God. And immediately I'm thinking, the word hope means certainty.
Yeah.
The hope of the gospel is to have a certainty about God, a certainty about his life, and a certainty about what that means.
Yes.
Right? That you're joined together with him.
Right.
That doesn't limit the possibilities, but it gives you a certainty about that which you're busy with. Right?
Yeah.
And so God itself is ever growing and ever living, and there's nothing that has to do with life that he can't do. And so understanding that part of God, or knowing it, doesn't limit life. That's honestly, I just thought it was one of the most ridiculous things I ever heard in my whole life. Within like 5 minutes, I was just like, I could have asked him like 10 different questions that would have just blown up the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's like the idea of knowing the truth is evil. Right? It's like relativism. It's like there isn't... Why do we want to even know the truth? Because when we know the truth, then that limits the possibilities, and life is found in the possibilities. No, it ain't. Life is found in the truth. And if you don't know the truth, and if you don't have a certainty about what the truth is, that leaves you being tossed to and fro. It doesn't anchor your soul.
But they still might want to elect you as president.
Absolutely.
Jesus said,
with Oprah's
If
comment
you
about
continue
Oh, I didn't
in
see
my
that.
word,
personal
then you
truth.
will know the truth,
That every person
and the
has their own
truth will make you free. Well, how are you going to be free if you don't know the truth?
Right.
That's
You
right.
can't be certain.
That,